Good evening and welcome to Community College Leadership News Network. I'm Corbin Boyu, and today's hot button issue, guns on campus. Should we allow them or should we ban them? Of course, with the uptick in school shootings, we have people on both sides of this issue clamoring for wholesale bans of guns on campus for safety reasons. And of course, on the other side, people claiming that guns should be allowed on campus for safety reasons. So, what's a leader to do? Those in leadership must make decisions that balance peace of thought, politics, and safety. Currently, 16 states have wholesale bans on guns on campus, including California. 11 states require concealed carry for faculty, staff, and students, but 23 states have the option for each community college leader to make the decision for their individual campus. This, of course, begs the question, what is the right decision? What should leaders in charge do about this issue of guns on campuses? Of course, my first thought is of the legislative piece here. To explore, CCLNN has called in Allison Earhart, our political correspondent, to explore the issue further. Allison, what legislative concerns should leadership be aware of in this situation?
The District of Columbia versus Heller case defines the current constitutional understanding of the Second Amendment, which protects the right of an individual to possess a firearm. While the interpretation of the Second Amendment continues to be debated, what is for sure is that all college campuses should be a safe haven from the violence that touches so many Americans. Attention on guns in post-secondary education came to the forefront of public attention in 2007 when, on April 16th, a senior English student attending Virginia Tech University who had a history of mental illness shot and killed 33 people and then took his own life. This deadliest school shooting in U.S. history sparked nationwide debate and concern has continued to rise over the years. A 2018 study by the Collegiate Times looked at college campus shootings that happened after the April 2007 Virginia Tech shooting and found that since the Virginia Tech massacre, over 122 more people have been killed by gunfire on U.S. college campuses. The interpretation of the Second Amendment varies by state, and there are large gaps between states. Though numerous states currently prohibit guns on campus, the design and push of new policy represents a shift in the opposite direction. In reaction to the increase in gun violence on college campuses, many states have become more lenient on gun control. According to the National Conference of State Legislators 2018 report, court cases have overturned some long-standing bans of concealed carry on state college and university campuses. In 2011, the Oregon Court of Appeals overturned the ban of guns on campuses, allowing those with permits to carry concealed guns on the grounds of these public colleges. In March 2012, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the University of Colorado's policy banning guns from campus violates the state's concealed carry law. In 2016, Tennessee passed a bill which permits higher education faculty to carry handguns after notifying the local law enforcement. In 2017, Arkansas and Virginia passed legislation to allow students and faculty to carry guns on college campuses. Utah remains the only state where all 10 public colleges allow concealed weapons. On the contrary, recent shootings also have encouraged some legislators to strengthen existing firearm regulations. In 2014, 5 states introduced legislation to prohibit concealed carry weapons on campus. However, none of these bills were passed. Currently, there are 16 states that ban carrying a concealed weapon on a college campus, including California. Institutional leaders must not take this growing issue on gun carry law lightly. The institutional leaders who have seen the enactment of gun carry laws in their states must strategize to not only comply with the law, but also promote safety amidst change brought on by the presence of firearms. Expanding the presence of guns in the spaces where members of the higher education community live, learn, and work is not without implications for institutional policy and practice. Statutory bans of firearms on campus may create other challenges or complexities for leaders who, for example, serve colleges or universities that share space with non-educational venues or entities. Developments that define or redefine gun laws prompt thoughtful deliberation for leaders in higher education and state policy. A meaningful dialogue on a critically important gun policy will affect the safety and well-being of our college campuses. In spite of all the gun legislation related to firearms on campus, gun violence continues to transpire. Leaders across the community must ask if the Second Amendment protects the rights of the students to carry concealed weapons on campus, or does this create a safety risk that will endanger the liberty of all students?
Thank you, Allison. Compelling stuff there. Of course, I'm wondering, as I'm sure our audience is as well, how do faculty and students factor into this issue? Where's their piece? For an exploration of that perspective, we had Christy Camacho, undercover journalist, infiltrate students and faculty in order to explore their perspective and their desires for this issue of guns on campus. Christy, what did you find out?
To further the discussion on guns on campus, it is important to consider two critical perspectives. One perspective is that of the students, and the other is that of faculty members. Now, students and faculty have a unique opportunity to come together in large groups for a set amount of time in a specified location, which is the classroom. And faculty are responsible for creating safe learning environments, and students are responsible for contributing and maintaining safe learning environments by being respectful to each other, by being respectful to their instructors, and by understanding that in the college campus community, there is a sense of collegiality that allows us to bring up diverse opinions and to disagree with each other, and to do so in a classroom environment that feels safe for all individuals. So in order for leaders to make decisions about should there be guns on campus or should they not, it is important for them to consider the perspectives of the faculty and of the students, because these stakeholders have a vested interest in the success of the college, and more specifically in the success of the educational process. Now, when we think about guns on campus, the faculty perspective is very strong in no, there should be no guns on campus. Many faculty are resistant to the idea of guns on campus, and they have expressed that even if they were able to carry a firearm onto campus or into their classrooms, that they wouldn't do so. Now, the numbers support this. When we look at surveys conducted by the National Education Association, in over 1,000 respondents, 80% said that they would not feel comfortable bringing a gun on campus. And Teach Plus, a national advocacy group for education and leadership, their poll of over 1,000 individuals revealed that 82% said no, they would not want to bring a gun on the campus, and they wouldn't, even if they were allowed to do so. In addition to that, a Gallup poll found that only 30% of instructors felt that bringing a gun on campus would create a safer learning environment. And in just general numbers of the American public, in 2015, CBS News and the New York Times found that 57% of Americans did not feel comfortable with teachers bringing firearms onto a campus. Now, the student perspective is more polarized. So we have two major groups. The group for concealed carry believe that Students should be allowed to bring guns on campus because it's a constitutional right. If they have the right to carry a firearm on their person to protect their home, to protect their families, then that right should be extended to their lives as students. So when they step onto a college campus, they should be allowed to carry their firearm. In addition to that, the Students for Concealed Carry believe that guns are a deterrent, that if individuals know that there are members of faculty, staff, and the student population who may be armed, who are trained, and ready to defend themselves and possibly others, that they would think twice before stepping onto the campus with the intent to create an active shooter situation. Now, the other side of this discussion is the campaign to keep guns off campus. These individuals state that there is no research to support the idea that guns are a deterrent, that guns do not create any sort of safety measure for students, faculty, or staff in the event of an active shooter situation, and that there are real concerns about student access to firearms and also their access to alcohol and drugs. So because of this, the campaign to keep guns off campus feel there should be no guns allowed on campus. Now, the faculty side is pretty strong. It seems that faculty do not want guns on campus. The student side, not so strong of a voice for one side or the other that dominates. So there is lots of debate to be had here, lots of things to consider regarding student perspectives. And this is where it's important for leaders to consider the students on their individual campuses. Now, for leaders to understand the point of view of these two stakeholders is crucial to their understanding of what education should look like on their particular campus and how they can best serve the needs of their particular community. The guns on campus debate, there is no easy answer. There is no one campus, there is no one state where there have been complete 100% no issues with guns on campus or complete 100% safety from having no guns on campus. So it is important to consider your individual campus. It is important for leaders to consider the individual voices of their stakeholders. And it is so important for leaders to consider the ability of students to complete their education in a safe learning environment and how faculty and students combine together in the classroom to create that environment, and that their voices should be heard and must be heard if the decision to create an open or concealed carry campus or to keep their campus a gun-free zone is being considered. These two groups of individuals need to have their voices heard. Otherwise, the leaders are not serving their community, they're not serving the best interests of the college, and they are not keeping the best interests of the students in mind when they create these policies.
Wow, Christy, thank you so much. That must have been a wonderful exploration. As community college leaders, though, we are also beholden to more than our faculty and staff. We are leaders of our communities. So it necessitates the perspective of not only our faculty, staff, and students, but also our parents of students, law enforcement, our businesses, our partners in industry surrounding our campus. So what is their perspective on this issue of guns on campus? I've called in Monica Lopez, an expert in community relations, to explore this issue. Monica, how does the community feel about guns on our community college campuses?
The community surrounding the issue of guns in schools includes parents, law enforcement agencies, partners, and community members, among others. Although legislation surrounding guns on campus varies by state, when the safety of students is on the line, school administrators are right to consider all options and input from the community. The community's position on gun control is very much a local one. The perspective in every state and school is largely influenced by the history of violence in the local community. States who have been victims of a school shooting are more accepting of guns on campus since tragedy and fear feel very close to home. All parents, not just firearm-owning parents, schools and organizations need to work collaboratively to reduce the level of firearm violence. A research study looking at parents' perception of violence in schools particularly in reference to firearms, found that mothers perceive parents at 99% and schools at 96% nearly equally responsible for reducing levels of school violence. These parents thought that the best solution for school violence were as follows. 1. Increase parent involvement with children. 2. Increase parental participation in schools. 3. Enforce school discipline policies. And 4. Provide counseling for troubled students. Half of these parents believe that more universal background checks for purchasing a firearm would reduce school violence. The most interested and active response in schools has been from staff members, mainly security officers. Many school staff members in rural areas are already concealed carry holders, so carrying a firearm is typical. Rural schools have been early adopters as law enforcement response could be up to 45 minutes away. Staff members at rural schools are increasingly becoming their own first responders. When looking at a larger scale of the community surrounding this topic, various organizations have expressed their stance on guns on campus. The International Association of Campus Law Enforcement, which represents campus public safety officials, said, quote, "The presence of students carrying concealed weapons has the potential to dramatically increase violence on college and university campuses," end quote. Allowing concealed weapons bring the potential for accidental gun discharge or misuse of firearms and the possibility for guns to be used to settle students' disputes, the group said in a statement. The Association of American Colleges and Universities, AACU, position is to address how the mentally ill, violence-prone, and people underserved by society continue to have access to guns. The AACU encourages lawmakers to expand background checks to make it more difficult for dangerous people to obtain firearms. Finally, the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, advocates for stronger state and federal gun laws that protect children and their families. We also call for stronger background checks, solutions addressing firearm trafficking, and encouraging safe firearm storage, they said. We will continue to work to ensure that children and their families have access to appropriate mental health services after a tragedy has happened at their school. Experts provide steps in the right direction. First, it's important to be involved. Schools need more adults on campus to assist with supervision. Safety watches need to be conducted primarily at big events such as football games. Second, keep weapons away from kids. 80 to 90% of students with guns get their firearms at home. Lee Burden, a man whose job as chief of police for Houston schools is itself a sign of the times, believes communities should conduct programs to teach parents how to handle and store their guns. Several states, including California, Iowa, Connecticut, and Florida, now have laws that make adults responsible for crimes committed by children using their weapons. Finally, be prepared and alert, and not in denial that it will not happen at your school. Preventing violence in schools is a collaborative effort from parents, schools, community, and law enforcement.
Thank you, Monica. Of course, we've looked at all these stakeholders, and it begs the question, how does a leader make a decision with all of these differing points of views? It seems that community college leaders will have to equip themselves with very strong leadership competencies here. So to address this issue, CCLNNN has invited special guest Mariana Zepeda to the show tonight. Mariana, it seems we'll need some strong leadership competencies here, but which ones to deal with this issue of guns on campus?
College campuses throughout the nation are seeing an increase of gun violence. For legislators in certain states recent gun violence points to a need to ease existing firearm regulations and allow concealed weapons on campuses. For others, the solution is to tighten restrictions to keep guns off of campus. Regardless of which state law is in place, administrators have a responsibility to examine various factors in ensuring campus safety. In states where guns are being allowed on campus, administration must consider costs and resources. What will it cost an institution to allow campus carry? In Idaho, where state law gives individuals the right to carry guns on campus, 5 state schools were forced to request more than $3 million from the state to increase security in the first year alone. Houston Community College Administration estimated an increased insurance cost of $1 million. Administrators not only need to consider the cost, but the impact guns have on the quality of learning experiences and faculty retention. In Texas, for example, where guns are allowed on campus, distinguished faculty members have left for other states. Educators and researchers have withdrawn from consideration for positions. There is a decline in performing and cultural programs, visiting speakers, and reduced opportunities for research. And multiple professors have cited a change in curriculum to remove contentious material in fear of retaliation via guns. On campuses where guns are allowed, administrators must also be wary of the potential misuse of guns. There are various reported incidents of students and faculty accidentally shooting themselves and others on campus. Furthermore, multiple advocacy groups are concerned that higher education managers and supervisors can become easier targets of violence due to their position of power, and the overall workplace climate of an institution can be hindered. There is no doubt administrators have a lot to consider when creating a safe campus, while also allowing individuals to carry guns. The National Center for Campus Safety has 2 recommendations for administrators. 1. Create very clear policies and procedures that outline where firearms are and are not permitted on campus, and communicate those clearly to stakeholders across the entire campus. And 2, develop a strong working relationship with campus police and public safety officers as new policies are implemented and monitored. On the other hand, in states where guns are not allowed on campus, administrators must consider how to keep a campus safe in case of an act of gun violence, or how can they prevent acts of gun violence on campus. Various research and advocacy groups provide research and steps administrators can take to improve campus safety without the use of guns. Administrators can increase accessibility to mental health services on campus. Data demonstrates that more than half of mass shootings that took place in the United States since the early 1900s were carried out by those either diagnosed with a mental disorder or with demonstrable signs of serious mental illness prior to the attack. Administrators can also create threat assessment and behavioral intervention teams. These teams identify individuals who may be at risk for harm to themselves or others. These teams help to coordinate to provide support that may be needed by these individuals and work to minimize potential threats of harm. Research demonstrates that risks for violence, suicide attempts, alcohol abuse, and risky behavior are greatly elevated among college-age youth and in the campus environment. Intervention teams can help to provide appropriate assistance to students much sooner. And lastly, administrators can implement bystander intervention programs that allow members of the campus community to anonymously report concerning behaviors. Johns Hopkins University found that legally armed citizens very rarely successfully intervene to prevent or interrupt mass shootings. It is evident that ensuring campus safety is a difficult task. Regardless of which state law administrators must abide to, it is crucial that administrators engage in constructive conversations with stakeholders, promote collaborative work with community partners, and remain informed of legislative changes.
Well, there you have it, folks. The issue of guns on campus is a complex one, overly complicated with many different sets of stakeholders here. What is certain in this issue is that leaders need to carefully consider the perspective of legislators, faculty, students, community, and their own leadership values when making the right decision for their individual campuses. Now, if a leader is to allow or ban guns on campus, all of these points of view must be carefully weighed before that decision is made. That's all for us tonight. Thank you to Allison Earhart, Christy Camacho, Monica Lopez, and Mariana Zepeda for sharing their perspectives with us this evening. And join us next week at CCLNN as we discuss another key leadership issue here. I'm Corbin Voyu. Stay leaders.